Hi, everyone. I'm James Protin. I'd like to give a special thank you to our sponsors for the podcast. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. We're coming to you today again from Chico Bocello in Cannonsburg, and our guest today is Denise Galloni. Denise works with organizations and individuals through her company, DG Training Solutions Incorporated. She has delivered over 500 presentations and keynotes to countless professionals who want to be better communicators and better leaders. Her passion for leadership, communication, and corporate training has earned her a multitude of awards and recognition, including being a two-time distinguished Toastmaster and receiving the Business Choice Award for corporate training at the Pittsburgh Business Show. She's also the host of an award-winning TV show, Empowering You, and has been featured guest on several domestic and international podcasts, as well as seen in 100-plus media outlets. She's also the author of Find Your Voice, 5 Keys to Lead and Empower Others. And she's also the co-author of Success is a Choice, Inspiring Thoughts to Jumpstart Your Success with James Malinchak. So welcome to the podcast, Denise. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me, James. This is so exciting, and what a beautiful venue.
Yeah, it's
beautiful
very
coffee
cool.
house.
It's very cool. So, we try to move around a little bit. We have a couple of different little coffee shops that we go to. This one is so cool because it's bigger than your average coffee
it's beautiful.
shop. And what they did in connection with ARC Human Services upstairs is really awesome.
Right.
So it benefits the community and everything.
And I love supporting small businesses like this.
This is great. Yeah, and they have
Perfect.
another location in Washington, a couple of blocks from the courthouse. I'd be remiss if I did not say that. But they've been so gracious and welcoming for us. It's just really, really a great place to be.
Great.
So,
Well, again, thank you for having me.
well, we appreciate you being here. And again, like I said to you earlier, tell my man Vince that I said hello.
I will, because
and we will.
you two are cousins.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And we're probably the only two that actually admit to that. The rest of our siblings probably don't want to, admit to either one of us.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about one of the points that you and I had talked about was that you were actually voted the quietest girl in your high school class.
Yes, and people do not believe that. So I do have proof. I didn't bring it with me today, but I do have a picture out of the yearbook. I was voted the most quietest girl in my senior class.
And that's actually a real thing, which is really cool.
It's a real thing. And we were just talking before we started. I went to Edgewood High School.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I was actually, my school is very small. So we were part of the merger for Woodland Hills where they combined 5 or 6 schools together
Right.
to make one big, huge high school. But Edgewood was very small. I had about 80 people in my class.
Really?
Very small. So I was voted the quietest girl. And people don't believe that.
You wouldn't connect those dots.
Wouldn't connect
the
those
quietest
dots.
girl doesn't write a book and doesn't train
No.
presenters
And sometimes
and
I'm
everything.
standing here looking back, I think, who is that person?
Yeah.
Who is that person?
It's
But
amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing because you've come an awful long way from that. And how did that journey manifest itself? So back when you came out of high school,
Right.
what kind of put your feet on the path that you've walked so far?
Well, I came out of high school and started working right away.
Okay.
Went to school at night, started working. I was still fairly quiet because I was young.
Right,
When you go
right.
in an office and you're 18, 19, you don't know what's going on. So you just keep to yourself. So I was
Sure.
fairly quiet. It took me years to feel more comfortable. And then about 15 years after I graduated, I was trying to remember, I couldn't remember, 10, 15 years, somewhere around there. I went to my first reunion.
Okay.
Because I'm not big on high school reunions, so I
Right,
went
I'm
to the
not
first
either.
one. And it was amazing that some of the people, now not the big Woodland Hills reunion, this was just my Edgewood people
Edgewood,
that
okay.
I was with from 7th grade till 11th, then we merged
Mm-hmm, sure.
with Woodland Hills. So years, 80 of us. And there was people that didn't remember me.
Really?
There's people that didn't remember me. And I thought, so I'd walk up and say, oh, hey, Jamie, do you remember me? And they'd say, no, no one remembered me. In fact, the captain of the football team came over to me. I was standing at the bar, and I was like, oh, wow, it's the captain of the football team.
Nice.
And he said, how are you? I'm like, oh, I'm great, how are you? And he says, oh, fantastic. Is your husband here? I can't wait to catch up with him. He thought I was someone's spouse.
Someone's spouse. Yeah. Okay.
So that's when I knew, okay, something has to change here.
Okay.
So as voted the quietest girl in the class, there was also a quietest boy in the class.
Okay.
You have to have,
Makes sense. Sure.
you have to have two.
Sure.
He was standing in the corner. So my friend and a couple of friends called him over, and he sat at the table with us, never said a word the whole night.
Really?
And I looked at him, and I was starting to come out of my shell a little bit. I thought, I can't be that way. I can't, another 15 years, people don't know who I am or remember me.
Right. That's very funny because I was at commencement for one of my grandchildren at Bell Vernon a couple of days ago, and the valedictorian was his speech was actually hysterically funny, and he said basically to the extent he said 15 years from now you're not going to remember who was your valedictorian,
Right.
and when somebody mentions me you're going to say, oh, that was that little weird kid. Right, but it's like it's that same thing that he struggled, and he, with fitting in and with doing this and with doing
Right.
that, and it manifests in so many different ways. But that's amazing. And you didn't take a traditional path after high school, go straight into college, spend 4 years, come out.
No. My dad died when I was very young, so we always struggled with money. So there was no money for me to go to school. So it was work and go to school at night, and that's what I did.
Good for you.
Yeah.
And that speaks volumes about people. When you have that kind of work ethic that you can
Right.
Do that and pull yourself up. That's awesome.
Right.
So you have 2 TV shows, not 1 but 2.
Well, I had 2. In 2015 or 16,
Okay.
I started empowering women
Okay.
on BPTV just because I wanted to introduce the audience to these incredible women that I knew
Okay.
to help empower others, just like you're doing.
Okay.
I want them to share their stories and empower people that may be watching at home. And I did that show for 30 episodes,
Okay.
had about 60 guests or so. And then at the end of 2019, I decided to end that show.
Oh, okay.
In addition to having my business, I took a full-time position in 2020, not knowing that everything was going to shut down for almost 3 years. So it was good
Right.
timing. So I could not do a TV show, work full-time, and have my business.
Right.
As much as I loved it, I had to end the show. And then we know what happened in 2020.
Right.
So the station called me and said, we're doing all of our shows virtually. And I said, I don't understand what that means, because I would go to the station, and Bethel Park is large.
Oh, sure,
We have 2
sure.
TV stations there.
Oh, okay.
And
I did not know that.
Yeah. One at the high school and a community station,
Okay.
public access TV. So he said, if you do your show by Zoom, send me the Zoom link, and I could actually put it into a show.
Really?
And he sent me a couple samples, and I thought, okay, this is kind of cool. I can do this on my own time. I can interview someone at midnight if I want to. It doesn't matter.
Right,
It works on everyone's
right.
schedule. Started doing that, and here I am.
Wow, that's awesome.
I'm taping number 24 next week.
Okay. Okay. Who's your guest?
Corey Walmsley.
Oh,
She owns
okay.
a publishing house.
Yes, know her well. Yeah, actually know her well. I talked to her about the helping with the book that I've been writing for about 8 years.
She's wonderful.
She is. She's very awesome. That'll be a great show.
Yeah, she
That's very cool.
edited my book.
Did she? Okay.
She did.
Well, good. We'll talk. We need to talk about
Yes.
that because I think you can give me some pointers because, I've written so much and so much and so much and so much. I finally had to stop writing.
Right.
Okay, so now I have this volume of words, which is all it is right now.
Right.
I need somebody, and that's what I've been talking to Corey about. So that's great. That is
Yes.
fantastic. So you mentioned you co-authored a book with James Malinchak, who is a local guy,
Right.
local sports hero, Menneson kid, and I think most of the people locally that watch this know who Jimmy was. But I don't know if a lot of people realize, what he did after
my
he left
goodness.
Menneson and what he's become.
Right. And he struggled for a long time, as most of us do, starting out their own business.
Sure.
He's come a long way. So when I met him, and he came and spoke at an event, and I met him.
Okay.
And normally I go to a lot of events. I'm always learning something, continual learner, always learning. And a lot of times speakers will say, oh, okay, that's pretty good. Or I'll say, I've heard that before.
Yeah. Yeah.
They haven't
right.
taught me anything. The first time I met him, I sat in that audience. I took probably 10 pages of notes.
Wow. Okay.
And that never happens. Not that I know everything, 'cause I don't.
Right,
But
right.
it just, sometimes you just hear the same things over and over. It
Well,
was
speaker
so
has to
different.
engage you, and,
Right.
and that means if you took that many notes, then obviously he touched a nerve. He hit something that got your attention and made you do that.
Yes. So it was amazing. I started coaching with him for 3 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. People don't know that he was actually on ABC Secret Millionaire a few years ago.
Okay.
That's-
I'd heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you ever want to see it, it's on Amazon Prime. You can find it. ABC Secret Millionaire. It's just amazing. Nice guy. Just a hometown boy.
Right.
Like every
Small town
time
kid,
I would
right.
talk to him, he's got a home in Vegas, and now he lives in Boca Raton also.
Okay.
And he'd say, "Where's the pierogies? Where's the halushki?" Like just a hometown boy, very
Yeah.
laid down to earth.
That's awesome.
But he's done amazing things. I think he has over maybe 5,000 or 10,000 presentations he's done. He has celebrity clients. Just an amazing individual.
And okay, so when you have somebody of that scope,
Right.
that comes into your life as kind of a mentor and works with you and guides you. That obviously has a tremendous impact on your personal journey as you're moving forward.
Absolutely.
So how did the relationship with Jim impact you, not only professionally but personally?
I think coaching is so important. Whether it's a coach, a consultant, a mentor, very important. Everyone needs help.
Right. Right.
I mean, if you look at the sports figures, I'm not a big sports person, so I'm not going to name any names, but if you look at the sports people that are out there, football players, basketball players, they have coaches.
Right.
And they have people that help them too.
Sure.
So everyone needs a coach. So when I started working with him, he pretty much just blew everything up for me.
Okay.
Blew it all up. He says, well, why are you doing this? Why do this? Why would you do this? And I didn't have an answer. My answer was, well, I always did that way.
Right.
Which wasn't
Right.
successful, but we just get in the habit of doing it.
You get in a habit, right.
So he really gave me a lot of confidence, self-confidence, introduced me to amazing people. We'll talk about the book in a little while, but I have some amazing testimonials in there that I would never, ever have imagined.
Okay.
Just opened a lot of doors for me. So I was just blessed that I was in that audience that day and met him.
Hey, let me ask you something. So you, what was the function? Can you tell us what was the function that you were actually at? Was it an empowerment type function? Was it a business directed function where you heard him speak?
It was a business directed function.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a marketing group, and they
Okay.
brought him in, and it was big crowds there. It was the first time I ever showed up at that group, and he drew a lot of crowds.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
yeah.
I think he knew everybody in the audience because I think everybody from Mon Valley was there that day in the North Hills.
Cool. Well, I'm curious to see what you think of this because, I'm not a professional marketer, businessman. That's something that I was pulled into. I've been in the engineering industry for
Right.
40 years, right?
Right.
I started out as a draftsman and a construction inspector and did all these different jobs. And then because I had a gift of gab, that's what they always said to me. You have that gift of gab. I didn't know what it was, right?
Right.
So, but I've never had any distinction between professional relationships and personal relationships. So in my mind, everything's personal.
Right.
Right. So how do you look at that, and how do you draw a line between personal and professional, or do you pull from experiences each way, one way or the other?
I pull from each way. I mean, with him, it was a very professional relationship. We were friendly, of course,
Sure.
but very professional. And if I started veering off, he'd say, nope, I'm your marketing coach, because he was a marketing coach. He wasn't
Right.
a public speaking coach.
Okay.
Even though he does that,
Right.
he said, you need to market yourself.
Yeah,
You know what you're going to say,
absolutely.
but you need to.
It's all branding, right?
It's all branding.
Yeah.
And that was kind of beating me in the head a few times. It's all branding.
Sure. No, that's very cool. So what I really wanted to talk to you about is this book, because
Yes.
I think it's fascinating, because I said to you a few moments ago that I think everybody has a voice, right?
Yes.
Every human being has a voice inside them, but not everybody knows how to pull that out and present it.
Right.
Right? So how does this book help me to do that?
Well, it's funny because people look at that book, Find Your Voice, and they think it's a book about speaking in front of people. Well, it's a leadership book. That's why I
Right.
say the 5 keys to lead and empower others.
Okay.
And it just worked out well because voice is actually an acronym. So for every leader, when I say leader, I don't want to stereotype it and say you have to have the title leader, because we're
Okay.
all leaders in what we do.
Right.
You could be in charge of the PTA, you're a leader.
Exactly.
We're all leaders.
Exactly.
So that book applies to anyone. So the V is for vision.
Okay.
No matter what you do, you have to have vision. You have to know where
Right.
you're going. And I always give the analogy. You wouldn't say, okay, I'm on vacation, I'm going on vacation, and hop in the car and have no idea where you're going.
Right.
You want to plan, you're going to Disney. Where are you going to stay? What are you going to do?
Right.
You have vision.
Okay.
The O, overcoming obstacles. There's always obstacles.
Sure.
You can't avoid them. You just have to know that they're there.
Right. And you can't stop when you encounter
You
one.
cannot stop.
Okay.
Again, you're on that trip, taking that trip. You're
Sure.
going to hit construction.
Sure.
No matter where you're going to hit construction. It's going to slow you down. There's always obstacles. So you have to learn how to overcome those obstacles.
Okay.
I is for inspire. We should always try to inspire people and help people and empower them. The person that doesn't do that, the leader that doesn't do that, is not a very good leader. I've had some. I'm sure you've had some in your career.
Absolutely.
You say you can have a boss, you can have a leader. There's a difference.
Not all bosses are leaders.
Not all bosses are leaders, right? Sometimes people feel threatened by other people, but you should always try to inspire them. My best thing I can do as a leader is try to inspire someone so they develop more professionally and maybe even go to a different place of employment.
Sure.
Because I've helped them in their journey. C is confidence.
Big one.
Big one. A lot of times we don't have confidence.
Right.
I mean, you hear, especially women suffer with imposter syndrome.
Yep.
people think, oh, I'm not good enough. And even when I was writing the book, I thought, who am I to write a book? Who am I to write a book?
Oh, yeah, anybody that's ever even entertained the thought of
Right.
writing a book always has that question comes up. That doubt always creeps in.
Right, right. And then the E, enthusiastic.
Okay.
You have to be enthusiastic. I could be having the worst day, but when I walk in here, no one would ever know it. I'm smiling, I'm enthusiastic, because that's what people are there for.
Right. Right. And it draws people to you.
It draws people,
Right.
right?
It draws people in. And I think the inspiration, the inspiring piece, you know, I mean, that's why we're all here.
Right.
Is right to inspire each other. And it doesn't have to be, you know, people think that they can't be enthusiastic or inspirational because they don't know how to make that big splash.
Right.
Right. But it's not the splash that inspires, it's the ripple.
Right.
Right? So the
Absolutely.
ripple is what hits the shore. That's what will carry out.
Yes.
You don't have to make that big splash to be inspiring.
Right. And when I say be enthusiastic, you don't need to do cartwheels across the stage or in front of
Right,
people
right.
and be like, rah, rah, cheerleader. No,
Yeah.
'cause I'm not that rah, rah
You're the
person.
quiet girl.
I'm the quiet girl, right. But I bring the energy
Mm-hmm.
and the enthusiasm that draws people in.
Sure, sure. So, I mean, you have come a long way because, you know, talking to you here now,
Yes.
I would never believe in a minute that you ever had that distinction, that title label, that label put on you, right? Because you're very passionate and articulate and enthusiastic and inspiring, right?
Right.
So that's not what you associate that with. So what would be my now? And I'll give you an example. My wife is just incredibly bright, incredibly sweet, but she's an introvert in every sense of the word.
Right,
Right.
right.
So if I take this book home to her to read,
Mm-hmm.
what would you think would be the biggest takeaway for somebody who is the quiet person, right? Because and I'll tell you exactly. She has an older sister and a younger brother.
Right.
Right. And they grew up in Monongahela. The family's been involved in the community forever. Fire department, this, that, and the other. And somebody asked me, you know, how things were going and if I was involved with getting, you know, married. I said, yeah, the Terry Polinoli from Monongahela. And he said they thought that I meant her sister. They didn't know there was a middle one.
Right.
Right? Because her sister and her brother are very outgoing, very enthusiastic, and she's the quiet one.
Right.
Right? So what would the quiet people who are looking to step out of that shadow, what would their takeaway be from this book? In your mind, what would you like for them to take away?
I think the biggest part of the whole find your voice formula is the confidence.
Okay.
Because a lot of times we're introvert, but there's a reason.
Right. Right.
And I have an exercise I usually work with this when I work with people, especially if I speak in front of a women's group. There's got to be a reason. Because people
Okay.
say, well, I can't do what you do. My friends say, I can never do what you do. Why?
Right. Right.
Yeah. And they'll say, because you're just that kind of person. No, I'm not.
Exactly. You're
I'm
perfect
not.
to the example
not that.
for that. Right.
Right. So I think a lot of times it's confidence. And there's a lot of different reasons why people are like that, especially speaking in front of people. And we all do it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
We were just standing there talking. We were getting the tea.
Right.
That's speaking in public. You're speaking in front of people you don't know.
You're exactly
so we're
right.
all doing it.
You know, the young lady, the barista there.
Right.
You know. and
Absolutely.
That's public speaking.
Right.
All day long.
You don't need to be right. You don't need to be on a stage.
Right.
In front of people. So start out small, and then and I think find your why. Why does it bother you? A lot of times I hear people think they don't want people to think, oh, she's a know-it-all.
Okay.
So we hold back a little bit because, oh, I know that, but I don't want to. In the middle of the meeting, people think I'm a know-it-all.
Okay.
Or, oh, that's wrong, but I'm not going to say anything because that person could get mad that I point something out. So there's that.
Right.
There's also people are introverted because they're afraid that they're going to be incorrect.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to say this, and people are going to laugh.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
They're going to think it's silly. Or they're going to think, oh, my gosh, how could she even say something that's so ridiculous? So people have these fears. So
Right.
you really have to find out. And I tell people, anyone that has children, I don't have any children, but I know, you have children, right?
Sure. Children, grandchildren, all kind of
Why?
people.
Kids always ask why,
1,000 times.
1,000 times.
Yeah.
So if you have issues, and I know I'm getting off track a little bit here, but
That's okay.
if you have an issue with any of these things, ask yourself why, and keep drilling down as far as you can.
Mm-hmm.
You may have to ask yourself why 10 times, but then you'll get to the root of the problem. Oh, I don't want people to think I'm a know-it-all. Or I don't want people to think, well, I'm a snob because I have this and that.
Sure,
So we
sure.
downplay things. We're introvert. So keep asking yourself why. I don't like to speak in front of people. Why? Well, it makes me nervous. Why?
Yeah.
Because people are going to say things. Why? because then just keep drilling why.
Right.
Eventually get to the root of that problem.
Yeah,
And that's
a
what
great
I did.
idea. That's a great
And then
idea.
once you get to the root problem, you could solve the problem.
Right.
Because very few problems are unsolvable.
Well, you'll get to the solution, and
You
I
will.
love that word. I love why.
Right,
Because
why.
for a lot of reasons, in what you just said, why always leads to a solution.
Absolutely.
Right? It, good, bad, or indifferent, it leads you to a solution, but it also leads you to discover so many things about yourself.
Right.
Right. Because when you ask that question, you say, I don't like to speak in front of people. When you say why, you go, I'm nervous. But you keep saying why, then all of a sudden you're learning about yourself.
Right.
Okay. So there's really no reason for me to be nervous about
No,
that. Right.
no.
And I had a fellow who was a mentor of mine. When I first started talking to groups and to big groups, small groups, didn't matter. He said, whenever you go on stage, and I'm curious to see if you agree with this. He said, whenever you go on stage, he said, you're talking to one person. Just like this.
Right.
So when I give a presentation or I talk to a group of people, if I'm on a stage, I talk just like I'm talking right now.
Right.
I don't preach. And I think a lot of people get in that situation. They feel that they have to present.
They talk at you.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So I will take somebody in the front row, and that's my person. So I'm having a conversation with that person. There might be 500 other people there, but this person and I are having a conversation.
Right.
And that makes me comfortable. Right?
Yes.
And that's how I learn to be comfortable in front of people.
Yeah. We all have our ways of doing things. There's always a smelling face.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I try to do it almost the same thing. As I look around and at different parts of the audience, you always see someone smiling.
Yeah.
There isn't anyone, well, I shouldn't say there isn't anyone, there may be one person, but there isn't anyone that walks in that audience and thinks, I hope she just messes up. I just want to see her. Because our time is valuable.
Right.
We want to get in there. We want to learn something. Everyone's supportive. Even if I'm up there and I see a speaker floundering or they drop their notes, I'm not like, look at that. I'm like, oh, they'll get it together. They'll get it together. And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
breathe. Just get together.
Yeah, you're feeling it.
We're
Right.
off, and the whole crowd's going, okay, just,
Yeah.
No one's laughing and heckling. It's not a comedy club.
Yeah. I don't think anybody wants to see
No.
other people fail.
No, of course
You
not.
know,
So I think that makes people a little more at ease also. Everyone wants you to be successful. They want you to get your message across because they're there for a reason to hear it.
Right. So what was all of this? You got in, you started the business, and you're doing all these things, but there had to be one thing or one kind of aha moment that really had you say, you know what, I need to write a book.
I don't know if there was one moment. I always knew I wanted to write a book,
Okay.
and I just kept going back and forth on what it was going to be about.
Okay.
Back and forth. I used to do a blog, like a monthly blog a few years ago, and I did that. And I wanted to write a book, but I thought, what do I want to write about? Who's going to read it?
Okay.
Who's your audience? Who's going to read it?
Well, those are great questions.
Right.
Right.
Do I just want to write a book just to write a book? Just for my own ego, write a book? Probably not.
Right.
So who's going to read? So then I looked back at some of my blogs, and I thought, okay, this is some good content here. So I started taking the blogs and putting them together a little bit, and then developing the theme of the book, and it came together pretty quickly. It took me a long time to do it because I kept putting it down, putting it off, putting it off.
Sure. Well, it's tough when if you're working full time and you got all these things going on.
There's a lot of things going on, right?
Yeah.
And then it's how long should the book be? I mean,
Right.
I've seen books like this.
Sure.
Do people sometimes pick up that book? Yes. Do they always read that book to the end? Sometimes, depending on the book.
Sure.
So I thought I'm keep the books short.
I
sweet.
see that, and that's interesting because a lot of people would want to, once you start writing, keep going, and knowing when to stop.
Right.
Right, and that's why I just told you I struggled with that.
Right.
Where do you stop? Because you have all these things in your head, and it's a your ego kind of steps in there.
Right.
Once you start when you start to write and you realize you have a lot more to say than what you even thought.
Right.
And it just goes on and on and on and on.
Right.
So knowing when to pull the plug and when to put the pen down is that's important.
Right. You've read Who Moved My Cheese? I
Yeah,
think everyone's.
absolutely. Yeah.
It's about 80 pages, maybe.
Yeah. It's a
Is that it?
great book. I mean,
Absolutely.
everything you need to know is in those 80 pages.
Was that his only book? No, he's written several books, all about
Right.
the same size.
Right. That's very interesting.
Yes.
So it's let's talk a little bit about, we've talked about speaking in front of groups and things. Are there any kind of quick tips, like 3-5 quick tips that you could give people who are looking at that, who might be afraid or nervous, just like something that somebody could easily adapt into and give a shot?
Be prepared.
Okay.
Look over your material. I don't memorize things. The problem is no matter how well prepared you are, you always get nervous walking in front of people. I still do.
Yeah,
I get that,
absolutely.
and if I don't get the butterflies, that's when something usually happens when I'm out there. So I like getting that energy, that butterflies. If you memorize, you're going to forget. Someone's going to interrupt you. Something's going to happen. So just be prepared.
Right.
If I walk in front of a group and they tell me, okay, you have a half hour to speak, I'm ready. If they say, oh, the next speaker didn't show up, can you talk for an hour? Yep, I can talk for an hour.
Sure.
I'll just add a few more stories in there.
Right.
Oh, the first speaker before you went overtime, can you cut it down to 15 minutes?
Yeah.
I can do that too.
Yeah.
So always be prepared for those situations.
Sure. It very rarely goes smoothly, right? You have to be prepared for, for again, obstacles, adversities, right? Things happen.
Right.
You know.
Prepare yourself before that. Where's the venue going to be? Does it take me 15 minutes to get there?
Sure.
What if there's construction? You don't want to be running late the last time. Give yourself time to get in there, breathe, just, okay, now I'm ready, and then go out there and do it.
There you go.
And things are going to happen.
Absolutely.
Things are going to happen. You just roll with it.
Expect the best, prepare for the worst.
You never,
right?
Right.
And it all comes back to being more informal and more casual, and that helps you to be comfortable.
Right.
Right. So you don't have to be stiff and worry about presenting as much as just conversing.
Right. And one final tip is if you're speaking in front of a group, and I've seen this so many times, even if you're in front of a podium or a lectern, people get nervous because your blood starts going, you get nervous, and what they do is they grab a hold of the sides of it.
Sure.
The more nervous you get, what do you do?
It's a natural thing, right?
You start
You're holding
tighter
on.
and tighter and tighter, and the whole audience sees your hands turn blue and white and everything else. So I always tell people, just place your hands down next to your notes. So no one can see you shaking, just put it down there and just look at your notes. And make sure you glance at your notes, but then look back up. I use bullet points.
Yeah, I do too, and that's why I have the
Right.
laptop here is because, you were kind enough to give me some talking points, and I find that when I'm presenting or speaking, and there's a lot of different ways to present in presentations. Like in the engineering industry, we do a lot of presentations to win projects.
Right.
So we're going out there for a specific targeted reason.
Yes.
And you usually have a PowerPoint behind you,
Bullets.
and a giant screen.
Right.
And I have seen PhDs, college professors who engineers who have taught, literally turn their back to the audience and talk to the screen.
Right.
And
or they read their bullets.
You should know better. Yeah, or you should know better, right? So there's that, you should have a minimal number of concepts per slide, right?
Death by PowerPoint.
All those things, right? So if I'm giving a presentation that is going to be, just say I have to talk for 60 minutes, right? I love having a podium because I like to have the notes, that I can refer to so I'm not constantly looking over. Or even if I don't have a PowerPoint, I like the safety, right, of a podium. But if I'm doing a shorter 15, 30 minutes, I despise a podium.
Oh my gosh,
right?
I move
because
around
I want to
so
be able
much.
To, I just want to be able to walk because I have just enough Italian in me that I talk with my hands enough, right? So I like to move around,
right?
And that helps me to be more comfortable and more confident,
right?
Because I'm a fidgeter by nature. I don't sit still,
Right.
So do you have kind of a safety net, a little thing that maybe I had a friend who literally held a rabbit's foot in his hand when he was speaking in front of public. It was something he had since he was a kid, and if you look at any of his, and you can find him on YouTube, he always has his left fist, looks like it's clenched, but he's got that rabbit's foot in that hand.
Really?
Right?
That's interesting.
So is there anything like that you do that keeps you grounded and kind of focused on what you're doing?
Not really. I know even today, if I have notes that I use, and if I have slides, I don't have as many notes.
Right.
But I will write down sometimes, smile.
There you go.
Breathe. Just because sometimes I get going and I just keep going.
Yeah.
And
I do that as well, as you can see.
Right. And with the PowerPoint, it depends, again, where I'm presenting. If I'm in a corporate situation, I have bullets, I have everything else.
Right.
If I'm presenting at a conference, I don't think I have any bullets in my presentation at all. I have pictures, I have some graphics.
There you go.
People can look at this and say, oh, and I know this face with flowers is going to remind me of this.
Sure.
Because people are visual people.
Absolutely.
They remember stories.
Yep.
They remember stories.
We're all visual learners.
Right.
And a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? It might be worth 10,000 words, to be honest. I mean, that's fantastic. So if you would be so kind, explain, because the word coach has a lot of different connotations, right? The average person relates to a coach from sports.
Right.
Okay. So business coaching, life coaching, all of those things. And there's nothing that inspires skepticism more than the term life coach.
Right.
Right?
I think it almost has a negative connotation.
Sure.
Because there's so many out there now.
Right. And nobody understands what they do.
Right.
Right. So if you could give us a kind of a definition in your mind of what just the word coach as it applies to what you do.
Okay. I do more of consulting, not coaching.
Okay. There's a distinction there.
There is a distinction. So a lot of what I do, the consulting, is in the companies. Where I'll consult with a department to put together some training materials for them.
Okay.
Or I'll consult with some people to come in and do a training workshop or a keynote speech.
Okay, sure.
Consulting. I do work with people one-on-one sometimes. I even think that's more consulting than coaching. Because to me, coaching just has that, I don't know, just that connotation that I'm a consultant.
Sure. And I like that, and I agree with that because, again, consulting is professional.
Right.
Right?
Right.
You know, it goes to, and I think as a consultant, you're more of a mentor than a coach.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You have a client that you're
Right.
consulting with, whether it's in business, no matter, regardless of what the topic
Right.
is or what industry it is.
Right.
Right? You're mentoring that person.
Right,
Right?
right. And coaching to me sounds like if I'm coaching you, I'm trying to help you find the answers, but I'm also like telling you what to do and pulling things out
Right,
of you.
right.
If I'm consulting with you, you're coming up with things. I'm giving you ideas, but you're the one developing it.
You're guiding a little bit. And,
I'm guiding.
And yeah, and you know, that's always been a thing for me because I coached high school basketball, right? So there's a bunch of young fellas that go run around and call me coach.
Right,
Okay, I'm not a coach,
right.
right? So, but that's kind of what people, when they hear the word coach, that's what they think.
For sure.
Right? But I like consulting. Now, do you feel that you can mentor someone if you're a mentee, right? That you're also a mentor, and if you're a mentor, you're also a mentee.
Yes.
Right? Because you can mentor up.
Absolutely, absolutely. And even when I'm training, I always learn something. That's
There
why I
you
love
go.
doing what I do. I always learn something. If I'm doing a presentation and people ask questions, I learn something. I always learn something.
Sure.
And I think that's what you have to do. You have to just continue to learn.
Well, you never know everything.
No.
There's so
No.
much. You'll never live long enough to know everything that there is, or even everything that you need to know.
Oh my gosh, I was doing a presentation for a women's networking group, and there was about 60 people. It was their conference.
Okay.
And I was doing a social media presentation, which I'm okay with social media. And I said something, and someone put up their hand and said, that's incorrect. And I said, well, really? And they said, it changed. I said, when did that change? And she said, this morning. I was like, oh my gosh. And I just laughed, and the whole
Yeah,
room laughed.
yeah.
I said,
Well, you have
I
to.
told you
It's
things change quickly.
Yes, they do. Yes,
From
they
my
do.
drive over here. And that's what you have to do.
Yeah, I think that's that's interesting. So your consulting is focused in the business world.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it marketing? Is it business development? What would be your specialty, for lack of a better word?
Leadership.
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 Okay.
Communication leadership.
And that applies to literally every
Every
professional
industry.
every every industry. It doesn't matter.
Right.
And one of the things in my industry in engineering is that the old adage about everything cliche you've ever heard about engineers is true.
Right.
Right. And,
I know some engineers, right?
Yeah, and these are the smartest people you'll ever meet.
Right.
And perhaps the most socially backward and frightened people you'll ever meet.
Right.
And my favorite joke about engineers is if you walk into a room of 500 people and want to find the engineer, just look for the guy looking at his shoes.
Oh,
Right?
really?
So, because that's just not something that we're taught or in tune to do because we're so focused on the subject matter.
Right.
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 So, have you had a group, a company, a corporation that you just couldn't reach, that you felt like you just couldn't get to, you just couldn't get through?
There's been times when I'm training something, and everyone has different abilities in the room, especially if it's technical training.
Sure.
That's when you really have issues, because some people are really great with technology, and some people don't even know how to turn a computer on. And
That's very true.
When you have those in a room together, it's difficult, because you're trying to be kind of average when you're instructing and talking, and there's people that are bored. They're looking at their phones because they're like, oh, we know what Windows is. We know what the cloud is. And there's some people saying, cloud? What do you mean by cloud?
Right,
So
right.
that's when it's really hard. I don't think I've never been able to reach someone, I think it's taken some effort.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And they might have left that room not getting everything that I was putting down that day.
Right.
But I think if they respond to me with questions, then I'm able to help them a little bit.
That's excellent. Excellent. So, what type of? I know you do keynotes. You do a lot of training. So, if somebody is interested in having you as a keynote speaker, a professional speaker,
Right.
What would your subject matter follow the leadership track, or are you if I wanted you to talk about
Anything but engineering.
Anything but engineering.
Can't talk about engineering.
Yeah, well, even engineers don't want to go to a conference and hear an engineer talk about engineering.
Right.
That's
right.
not, But I mean, you're not specifically pigeonholed in that leadership space, is what I'm trying to say.
It's leadership and communication, because they go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
Hand in hand.
And communication is difficult.
It is very difficult.
And I think sometimes that internal communication in especially in a larger corporation, is more difficult than the external piece with clients.
Absolutely. And that's where problems break down and things break down.
Mm-hmm.
Leaders communicating with their employees, you develop that lack of trust.
Right. Yep.
So there's a lot of that. So a lot of the consulting I do with executive is the communication part.
Okay. And just let me get back to the book for a moment.
Yeah.
You said that you're going to have a launch. It's not out yet. You're going to have a launch on August 4th?
August 4th, the Grand Concourse, yes.
Okay. Is that an invitation thing, or can anybody come?
Anyone can come.
Okay.
It's going to be on my website, DeniseAnnGalloni.com.
Your website. And if somebody wanted to email you, whether to ask you to come and speak to their group or just to ask you questions, your email?
info@DeniseAnnGalloni.com.
There you go.
Nice and easy. And it's all over my social media.
Okay. And you're on Facebook, Instagram,
everywhere.
all of the above. Do you do Snapchat?
I'm too old for Snapchat.
I
can't
I'm
figure
not
it
allowed.
out.
My grandkids told me, don't, Pap, don't even
I
think
do
about
not
it.
do Snapchat.
Yeah.
I
I'm
don't,
banned from Snapchat.
I don't do TikTok.
Me either. Yep.
No.
And I don't even really do Twitter anymore because of all the crap that went on here in the last few
Right.
years. But I think social media is a very powerful tool if
It
it's
is.
done properly. You do it well. There are some other people who do what you do that don't do it quite so well.
Right.
So do you do all of do you create all of your own content? Do you do that, or do you have somebody that you work with?
Most of the time, it's my own.
Okay.
It's me actually sitting there putting it out. I do have someone that helps me occasionally when I get busy, because it takes a lot of time.
Oh, it does.
It
does.
takes a lot of time.
Right, and I work full time,
Right.
and I have a business that I do on the side, and Nick and I are doing this, right? And Nick has his gig going; he has his own little production company, and we don't have time. We can create content, but it's publishing it, right? It's sharing it,
Right.
And that's what we're struggling with right now: is how do we get that person or that little business that we're going to put out this much content on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. This is going to go out. We provide the content. They take care of it.
It's hard.
Right? It's very hard.
Because you don't want to put too much out there, because then people
Right.
are like, oh, here's another post from Denise again. They just keep scrolling.
Exactly right.
And you don't want to you want to make sure it's valuable.
Right. Right.
There's people, and I know you've seen them, people that the posts that are out there is asking,
right.
do you need this? Call me. I have this.
Yeah.
This, me. It's all about me.
Right.
It's not. It's about you.
So how do you make your branding content, your marketing content about the other person, about the audience, rather than yourself? By instinctually, right? You're going to say, I'm Denise Galloni. I wrote a book. Buy my book. So how do you make that about the person that you want to read it?
Try not to say the word I.
Okay.
I always use you. And then through stories.
Okay.
Because there's people that are sitting there that they can relate to stories. Again, we're back to the visual stories. If I'm doing a presentation, I have that picture of me being the quietest girl, and the picture's there with the Farrah Fawcett hair and everything. It's there. And people laugh, but they'll remember that.
Absolutely.
They may not remember what I say, but they'll remember that.
They'll remember that.
And
right.
I must be doing something right, because people come up to me, and my husband laughs at this, and they'll say, are you Denise Galloni? And I'll say, yes. They say, oh, I follow you on Facebook. Or they'll say,
Hey.
don't I know you from somewhere?
Right.
This just happened last week. I was at another book launch, and someone said, don't I know you? And I said, I don't think so. And they said, oh, you look really familiar. And I said, I don't know. So we were talking, do you know? No, none of these things. And then I said, well, I have a TV show. And they're like, oh, we watched that. We saw it because it plays on Bethel Park TV. We
There
saw
you
that.
go.
We're in the area. So people do recognize you and remember things.
Yeah, absolutely. They remember.
Yes. I do have one thing to say. So I told the story about the high school reunion.
Yes.
I went back in 2019 for my high school reunion. It was an all-year reunion, so there was a lot of people there.
Oh, okay.
And that was the first time I went back since the first time.
Okay.
And I owned that place when I walked in.
Nice. That's awesome.
People were, so what do you do? I said, I'm a professional speaker. They're like, you what?
That is awesome.
You might have seen my TV show. No, I wasn't that way. I wasn't that way. But people were just surprised. They're like, wow.
Well, we have to, because the Quiet Girl has a television show. She's written a book, and
Right.
she stands up in front of 10,000 people and speaks to them. And that's amazing.
Right.
You know, that journey in itself, 'cause I've always been this.
Right.
I have never been anything but what
Oh, my
I am
gosh.
right now. And Vince will tell you that. I mean, it's like, this is who I am.
Right.
You know, and it goes back to how we were raised. You know, and we Vince and I both come from very gregarious, outgoing people.
Right.
Right. So I can't relate to a lot of things
Right.
like that, because I've always been this guy.
Right, but your wife probably could.
She can, because she's you.
Right.
She's that's who she is.
Right.
Right. And you know, getting back, she's a pharmacy technician. Okay. She has people come in, and every single day she talks to 200 people.
Right.
Right. But she doesn't. If you asked her if she likes to speak in front of people, and she'll say, "Oh my God, no." You know. But you talk to 200 people a day.
Right.
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 Usually
we all
more
do
than
it.
I do.
We all do it.
Exactly.
People you don't know, we all do it. Right.
Yeah.
Toastmasters also helped me a lot.
Oh, okay.
I joined
yeah,
Toastmasters. I was in it for about 12 years. That really helped me a lot.
Okay. Have you now? I learned from our mutual friend MJ Calloway. that
Yes, MJ. She set the
Profession-
bar high for
Yeah.
this. I watched her interview last night. I thought, boy, she's setting the bar really high.
MJ's the best, and you are fantastic. This has been incredible, and I'm really excited to see this once Nick gets it and we publish. But what I learned from her about professional speaking, right? So I talk to a lot of, especially schools. I go and I talk to kids, and
Right.
and I'll talk to companies, but I don't get paid to do it, right? Because I don't consider myself to be a professional speaker. So in my mind, if you get paid to do something, you're a professional, okay? Whether you have a license or a certification behind you or not, okay?
Right.
Because we have that debate as to, like, if you have somebody that gets a bachelor's degree in civil engineering,
Right.
okay, that, or can they call themselves an engineer if they don't have the professional engineer's license?
Okay.
So, you know, that's a very targeted debate to that industry. But I never considered myself a professional speaker because I've never been paid to do it. I don't do that. So, but MJ said, you know, every time you stand up in front of somebody, whether it's 2 people or 200 people, and you speak to them, you're a professional speaker.
Absolutely. I agree. I put workshops on. I was just starting my business. I had 2 people show up.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter. I gave that same presentation if there was 100 people in that room.
I
don't want those 2 people that paid for that.
Was that like a punch in the gut when you
yeah.
walked out there and saw 2 people?
Right. So I had people register ahead of time. I only had 2 people. So I had my mother and my sister come in just to fill up the room a little bit, just because I was new starting out. I need to fill. It was in a Panera back room. You know, So they came in, and afterwards my mother said, "Now, didn't you feel stupid just talking in front of 2 people?"
Did you really? I think that's a lot of
My
people's
family
fear.
grounds me a lot. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's a lot of people's fear that, you know, for anything that you put yourself out there and nobody's going to show up. Or
Right.
nobody's going to care.
And it happens.
Right?
It happens.
It does. It absolutely
happens
does.
to the best of us. But yeah, I'm still going to give them the same presentation. I didn't cut corners. I gave the
love
same
that.
thing. As if there was same energy. Because you
go.
don't know who those 2 people know.
Right.
They may go back to a Fortune 500 company that they work at and say, "Oh, I had this amazing speaker."
Yeah.
You don't know.
Well, you know, and I say that all the time because, you know, the odds are better than average that the only person watching this is my mom, right?
Right.
So, you know, but we're having a great conversation, and I hope the people that do tune in learn something.
Right.
Learn something, and maybe, you know, because of this conversation we're having and your story, which is powerful because, you know, nobody picked you up and carried you where you are.
No.
You know, you you know, being shy, being introverted, being the quiet girl, right? To coming to where you are now, you know, you're enthusiastic, you're inspiring, you're confident, you're all of those things
Right.
that you preach.
Right.
Right. So that's a great story, and it's a great journey.
Right. And it has been an easy journey. So I don't want to minimize it. It has not been easy.
Right.
There's
Oh,
been
no, it's
so
not.
many setbacks and
Yeah.
and obstacles and knockdown and start back over and reinvent myself. And I took a few years off and rebranded myself completely. You know,
Okay.
new website, not going by my company, going by me, being the face of my business, all that. So it's not easy.
No, not at all.
But again, the vision. I had a vision. I know what I want to do. I know in my mind, I know I want to do these things yet.
Right.
I have this goal, financial goal. I want to make this. Am I there yet? No. Am I closer than I was? Yeah.
Yeah. And you'll get there.
Got to reach for it.
You're right. You'll get there because you have the vision and you're committed to it.
Right.
Right. And I love this acronym. I did not realize. See, I was looking at this at the title of this book as finding your voice, right? And being able to speak.
And it all fits together.
But it all fits together, and that's such a great acronym. And you're sticking with that. You're actually living it.
I am.
You know, and that's great.
Yes.
That is fantastic. You're not just talking that, you know, I'm old. I'm a walking cliche. You're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk,
yes.
right? So, but that's, and go reiterate for us just real quickly the 5 keys to leading and empowering others, because that's, in my mind, that's what life is about.
Right.
Right.
And that the 5 keys are the acronym VOICE. So vision.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Overcoming obstacles, inspiring people all the time. I always try to inspire, as you do, and empower people.
Sure.
You interview the same way I do. It's not about me when I'm interviewing. It's
Right.
my show, but it's not about me. It's about my guests. Personal confidence. You have to have confidence. Even when you don't have confidence, you have to. You
Right.
have to fake it till you make it. It's an old thing from a long time ago.
Right. That's exactly right.
Because there's times I don't know the answer. And when you're standing in front of a group of people and they ask you a question, I don't know all the answers. And there's times I just said, I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know, but you know what?
I don't know is a great answer.
I'm going to find out,
Right.
and then I'm going to email the conference chair, and they can let you know. Or you know what? Follow me on social media. I'll put the answer to that question tomorrow because I want to find the answer too. Then that builds the person up.
Right. And that gives you a connection.
Yes.
That gives you a connection with the entire audience because, you know, they come in thinking that they're going to learn something that they don't know
Right.
from you. And if you're willing, you put yourself out there and you're willing to let them know that you're willing to learn something from them.
Right.
I mean, that deepens that connection, and you always want to have that connection with your audience.
Absolutely.
Right? In some way. And it can be something very small.
And enthusiastic. Always be enthusiastic whenever you're doing anything. I always say, don't be an Eeyore.
There you go.
Why
Yeah.
me? Why
Woe is me.
today?
Woe is me. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
No one would know what was going on because we all have things going on.
Sure.
But if I walk in front of that group, no one knows that. They
Right.
think, oh, it's great. I'm on top of the world, and they have no idea what's going on in the background. And they don't need to know that. You're there
That's
to do
exactly
a job.
right. That's exactly
I'm
right.
there to do the best I can do and smile and be enthusiastic
exactly
and present
right.
the material.
And sometimes that's hard because no matter what's going on in your personal life,
Right.
you know, you have to go out there and you got to show up every single time.
Right.
Every stage, you have to show up and be this face.
Right.
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 And that's not easy.
Right.
You know, when I first started talking about depression, and I've struggled with depression, what I found out my entire life, right?
Right.
I can't tell you how many people came up to me and said, I never in a million years would have guessed that.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Well, but how do you know? How would you know anyway?
You wouldn't know. Right. Right.
So sometimes you just got to drag yourself out of bed and show up.
You do.
Put your best foot forward and
Right.
do what you have to do.
Right.
And that is really hard. Can you relate at a time, just an example of where you actually, the last thing you wanted to do was go stand up and talk to these people, but you showed up and you went out there on that stage and you killed it?
Yeah. That's actually a great question. I'm glad you asked that. I was speaking in front of this women's group on social media.
Okay.
And every once in a while, I get ocular migraines. So ocular migraines is I have the R in front of my eyes.
I've heard, yep.
The pounding, everything. It's almost like the old kaleidoscopes. You
Yeah,
turn,
sure.
you get all the colors.
Yep.
And so I can't see really anything. Very limited. It usually starts on one side and like goes to the other side.
Really?
I was in front of this group and I was presenting. I'm up there at the podium, I'm presenting, and I could feel it coming on. I'm thinking, it's coming on, it's coming on.
Wow.
And I'm kind of looking at the time. I think, it's going to happen right here
I'm
in
not
front
gonna
of this.
make it.
I'm not going to make it. It's going to be right in front of this group of people. And I went on, and I got off that stage, and I thought, oh, that was just horrible. Like, I felt like I didn't give everything I could. And people kept saying, that was great. That was the best presentation ever. And I thought, I couldn't even see, like, the last 10 minutes of that presentation. I was looking at my slides thinking, and just, okay, I could see that one word. Okay, the slide's about this.
Yeah, yeah.
No one knew it. No one knew it. And
That's
I walked
amazing.
off that. I had to put my head down and everything, and no one knew it.
That's beyond confidence, and that's heroic. When you can do
I don't know
something
about
like
heroic, but
no, it is. It truly
Right.
is because you know you had a responsibility to those people, right? And you just sucked it up, and I know what those things are.
What
That's
do you
brutal.
do? I can't walk off because I probably can't even see the stage. I probably fall asleep, and so
Well.
got to take my chance there. Or normally, that's happened once or twice, but never in front of a big group like that. I'll say, what questions do you have? Like, I'll field questions or something so I can compose myself, but yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. That even goes beyond anything that I've never, because those are debilitating. I mean,
They
those
are.
you just got to go get in a dark room and just,
Right.
But I mean, I've done dumb things and had to recover from them, but that's a tough one.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. So, just in closing, is there anything that you would want to get one person, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's one person watching this that you have something that they need. So what? Just in parting before we go, what would that one thing that you would want somebody to pick up and to walk away from this when they close their computer and take away with them?
Anybody could do it. You can do it. I never would have thought that I would have a TV show, do all these presentations, being over 100 media outlets, sitting here on this podcast, an international podcast. Never would have thought that.
Okay.
And if someone would have told me that, I would have thought, you're a little crazy. Never would have thought that. But you can do anything. Did it happen overnight? No. Did I have bad things happen along the way? Yes. Did I have bad presentations? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
we all have. Yeah, we all have those.
We all have, and they're always in my mind.
Those are the ones you don't forget.
You don't forget those.
Yeah.
You don't forget those.
Right.
But you just have to keep pushing on, and just people see what you want them to see.
Okay.
They don't need to see all the stuff behind you, and
Sure.
Being unsure about something. They want to see you're confident. You project that, and when you project that, people realize it.
Okay.
So just try to get in that habit of doing that. Start small.
Yep.
We talked about speaking in public. If you can't do that, maybe read at your church or your synagogue.
There you go.
You don't even need to look at anybody.
Right.
You just need to stand up there and just read.
And just read.
Just read.
Yeah.
Start out small.
That's a great idea.
Answer a couple questions in a meeting. Put your hand up.
Raise your hand.
Yeah, offer to read the minutes back from that last meeting. Something that you need to look and just build up your confidence that way.
Just build up your confidence and get comfortable hearing your voice.
Yes.
Because
No one likes their voice.
Nobody does.
Nobody likes their voice.
I ask Terry Lynn all the time, do I really sound like that?
Oh,
Because that's not what I
terrible.
hear.
Horrible.
You gotta be kidding me.
Horrible, right.
I keep hoping Nick could clean it up and make me sound like James Earl Jones or something.
Oh, that would be kinda
Yeah,
nice,
that would be cool. But no, that's great, and I think that's so important, and it goes back to showing up.
Right.
Showing up authentically and who you are, and just putting yourself out there and being honest and vulnerable. People pick up on that, and they respect that.
Right. And if you're afraid of getting in front of someone and speaking, we've all had bad things.
Oh, yeah,
Me,
absolutely.
MJ, we all have our stories.
Absolutely.
I mean, we could tell you. There's been times that I thought. One time I was speaking at a national conference. It went horribly, and I was up there thinking, I'm just going to pass out. And I thought, at least if I pass out, it'll be over.
Yeah.
So those things happen. We've all had stuff.
Yeah.
You just have to just laugh about it.
Mm-hmm.
Say, just minimize it and just keep right on going.
And learn from it and move forward.
Right.
Take the next step.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's reiterate your website, DeniseAnnGalloni.com. If anybody has any questions or comments and would like to reach out to Denise, it's info@DeniseAnnGalloni.com. So thank you so much, my friend, for coming and joining us. This has been wonderful.
It has been.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so
and
much.
Thank you for the book. This is very kind. I'm going to read it today.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you.
Okay, take care.